On many levels, Pac-Man is one of the most messed up ideas for a video game you could conceivably imagine. Think about it. You play as a jaundiced blob, evidently cursed with a compulsive eating disorder, and you're tormented by ghostly apparitions that chase you constantly. The only way to gain respite from your supernatural hunters is to pop special horse pills that are almost as big as your own head, which then bestow upon you such formidable powers that the ghosts will flee from you in terror as you chase them. And if you catch them while under the influence of these dubious, oversized pharmaceutical products, you'll eat them. But just to be clear, you'll spend more time being hunted than you will as hunter, because those magical pills are in short supply, probably due to shady price-fixing practices in the pharmaceutical industry. But the worst part is, if those ghostly tormentors of yours catch you, your fate will be grislier than you can imagine. You'll freeze on the spot for just a moment, and then your body will turn inside out. The more I think about it, the more thankful I am that Pac-Man is a product of the past, rather than something that debuted on current-gen hardware. What I've just described to you right there is a VR nightmare waiting to happen. Mark my words. Those of us who are old enough to remember playing Pac-Man in amusement arcades should be thankful for the limitations of 1980s sound and graphics, because they probably saved us all from severe childhood trauma. Of course, it could also be the case that Namco's Pac-Man is just a perfectly harmless bit of fun, and I'm overthinking things to a macabre level. But whatever you think of my personal take on it, there's absolutely no doubt about just how ubiquitous this game is, with a conversion of it appearing on pretty much every major home computer or game console known to man. Try to name a system that you can't play Pac-Man on, I dare you. I tried to think of one before writing this review, and every time I thought I'd found one, it turned out there was a version for it hiding away somewhere. If not as a disc or cartridge, then as a digital download or part of a retro-themed collection. Its popularity is beyond question, probably because it's so simple that anybody could play it. Pac-Man is so well known that I really do not need to tell you what the object of the game is, and if you do need the pill-munching, ghost-avoiding, maze-running gameplay explained, well, my guess is you've probably had an extremely sheltered upbringing. You could ask though if a game with such a simple premise is still relevant and worth playing today, and the answer to that one's easy. But passing judgment on one of its many, many home conversions is a more complex proposition. As with any port, you have to consider how well it reflects the original arcade game. Is it a slavishly accurate conversion, or does it add something new to it in some way? Or even detract from it, because that's possible, as you'll know if you've ever beheld the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man. Even an idea as simple as this can be messed up in translation. Thankfully, the NES version, seen here in all its glory, is a really competent rendition of a classic coin guzzler. It gets more or less everything right. The entire maze is visible on screen and properly proportioned, and it looks and sounds about as faithful as you could expect from Nintendo's 8-bit console as well. Although, if you've got an aversion to repetitive electronic sounds, well, let's be honest, this was probably never the game for you to begin with. In terms of what makes the game tick, nothing's really been substantially messed about with. The game has just the one maze, and your reward for clearing it is that you get to play on it again, and again, and again. But as you complete each round, the game plays at a faster pace, and chomping power pills renders the ghosts vulnerable for a shorter period of time. This ramps the difficulty of the game up quite a bit, and before long you'll find it takes a good level of awareness and quick reflexes to get anywhere, making it a game that demands skillful play. The thing about Pac-Man is that, like a lot of the old classic coin-ops, you don't really appreciate how cleverly designed it is until you actually get your hands on it and start playing it. Just tearing around the maze in an effort to gobble up all those pills before Inky, Blinky, Pinky and Clyde catch up with you will only get you so far. To really score the big points, you'll have to play in a more considered fashion. Keeping an eye on the maze as a whole and paying attention to where those pesky ghosts are helps you decide when to make a beeline for the power pills, letting you turn the tables on them right before they converge on you. And you'll often have to think on your feet, sometimes making a decision on whether the time is right to make a daring dash for the last difficult to reach pills on the screen, or to hold back and play it safe. You're playing for points all the time, because you need to be racking them up continually to earn extra lives and stay in the game. So you may find yourself at any given moment torn between making a detour to grab a sweet 500 points worth of cherries, or chasing down a nearby ghost before he stops flashing and resumes chasing you. The whole game is built around the classic risk versus reward style of play that you find in so many games from this era, in its purest form, and that's what makes it fun. Yes, it becomes repetitive fairly quickly, and its knack for putting you in the odd, impossible situation can be frustrating. Finding yourself caught between Inky and Blinky with no way of escaping them, for instance, feels painful. But this is all part of the game's charm, if you ask me. Like a lot of its arcade contemporaries, Pac-Man's not something you'll spend hours at a time with, but this NES conversion perfectly preserves the pick-up and play quality of it, meaning it's always going to be good for a few minutes of fun whenever you dig it out. As I say, not every home version of this game is as solid, so if you're interested in adding a faithful port of it to your collection, this one's a good bet. Just try not to dwell on the obviously twisted nature of its premise. Forget Resident Evil 7, let Pac-Man's ghastly implications into your brain, and they will give you nightmares. Actually, thinking about it, this whole setup with the ghosts, what do we even know about them? Who were they before they died? For all we know, Pac-Man could be the Fred West of video games, and they could be the tormented spirits of his victims. What if they've been painted as the villains of the piece all this time, but they were innocent all along, only pursuing Pac-Man in a quest for justice from beyond the grave? Makes you think, doesn't it?